So, schönen guten Tag. Das ist kein Kriminalfall, der mich jetzt interessiert. Das ist nur zum Datum, was wir heute haben. This is not a criminal case you see in this police report, this actual today report. Und ich versuche das, it is only to give you the date of today, and this is important. It is not even to show me, but it is that people looked at my mother, and my mother said, I'm only having my ankle. Some even made no jokes, but said, if that is the ankle, how is it with her fist? And there always have been people with this relaxed kind of going to things, even from Russia. And for me it was not important what country those came, because it was important for my mother that she was had been raised to care for the peoples. Yes, of course, for her, she was not a patriot, as you might say. She was raised in responsibility before God and man, and the others have been raised to care for Netherlandish people, I think. This is no contradiction. It is the European and the world that had to be. It was not communicated. Therefore, it was between the lines. Communicated, yes, but not as in German. Kommuniziert, mostly with words. But you might say indirectly it was communicated, but on the other side it was not. If you see it, for you it is communicated. And this is really all the time a demand. Those have been working. My mother is, and Mama as well, I felt, and Papa, those would had defended me with their lives, and even those caring, maybe daycare or week care or month care, parents, mothers, and this is no joke. Others think it is a joke. Who is doing that? To care for another child. It had been the habit after World War II. Not everyone did it, but to take care for those who had no fathers anymore. But then in between, even me having parents, I was not having them on the way, on the road. But the demand was not forced. This was another kind. It was looking at the heart. You can't do it that fast. But you understand the heart through everything. Therefore, it is difficult, but you need to look at the core, at the bias, basics, ins and outs of a computer, you understand. That is mostly, not only one bias, there's in the hardware those basics, ins and outs firmwares, but with you it should be, and it is. And I was lucky. I had role models, but I saw them expecting it in the future to earn. And therefore there was the strange situation. My mother was caring for the real interests, the long-term interests of the Germanic peoples, and those even spoke other languages, but it had been the type, and those even then came from the east, from the west. Therefore I did not understand, and I'm still not understanding. Maybe it is a box I have, but I need to explain for myself, to have a pattern or to have something to work with. And for you it is, I wasn't raised with photographs and pictures, it was drawn. I think maybe you blame me thinking you could not do it as I had done it. Yes, it is really true. I understood others do not expect others to understand it between the lines, and this is not supremacy thinking, and this I now understand. It is a think with the industrialization. Of course, China, of course, had some things before, invented before, but then somehow lost, and then it was reinvented. But I mean that what is there today, you really can, I'm showing it to you. I know others who were raised not with schooling, first schooling. Look at others and understand, ask questions. I was allowed to ask questions. No dumb questions, only the one who is not asking. And it was different in the surrounding, and I knew that. But I learned later, you can build up something on your own, and I had to accept it is not always working out, but now it could. It should. Everything is based on contracts. I really learned it even in war. And if there are no contracts, people work on it. As you know, on sea, there's a captain, someone in high authority, and then later there is a court. You could go to the court and decide what had happened in the turmoils in the midst of the ocean, and then there is the problem to prove, and that problem could have had better support, but it is effort, it is energy, and I understood I can't solve everything. After the war there had been judging very much, and my mother, she was narrowed in, I might say forced with morals, and we did the same, not on knife point or with a drawn pistol, but with arguments. Maybe it is your responsibility for the sake of your parents or for the sake of your conscience to do something. And the doing had been difficult, to ask, like a police interrogator, to interrogate, to ask soldiers and to make your picture, your own, not a judgment, but to have something to show others. And I had been there. It was not lightly. It was not lightly done. And how many then witnesses have been there? The danger is There's then the blame. You did not do it as good as it should have been done. And the most important had been the own interests had not been there. And this was proved. And even then later, there was the working with false blaming techniques. And this is now the point. The false blaming techniques could make you someone who is losing credibility. And this had been ugly. And therefore, I was very glad to see some kind of international effort, and this worked out, and this still has to be supported. The international effort to make it not that way. Let me say, with a law that will let you lose money if you have some slave labor somehow in the distribution line. For example, if you are working on metal and there in the mining business are slaves, you could be judged and then lose things. And the idea is, of course, not to earn money on the side of the state, but to make it an idea that it is a good thing to support the making of money with slave labor. You see, with the false blame, money could be moved, but also with other techniques. And with us, there was not even the idea there is assets, but I already knew other people trusted us. And this is the thing I want to correct, that the trust is still there is important. Because now understanding the false doctors' diagnoses, who could even grew worse, who could even be underlined with another false support of doctors. There's the saying, one doctor will not go after the other, but this is necessary. If a doctor is not healing illnesses, but helping with the understanding, there's someone, I have two cameras, and I see myself in the monitor, but this is now a little bit uncut, too much. No, it isn't. I should cut out things, but this is for you not to understand it is a good recording, or it is me you could judge. This is to understand, not to judge me, but to go after evidence. This, if it is true what is in the papers, is a strange world, and not too much after righteousness, or is it? It had been righteous to judge things after warfare, to judge things after criminal state laws. And I'm not saying this is the same, but it is strange not to understand that the perception you have is a result of your working on it to have it better. Do not believe what you say, but make your judgment according to what your common sense excludes. To exclude an illness is an argument. To exclude a false blame. And this goes to points I do not need to prove. This is another thing. People work with a moral that is quite okay. Do not bring anything in the open till it is proven there is something of value, and this is a problem. There had been the asking, if you see something that is an attack or something like it, record it. No. Report it, but report a thing that is in the medical system with then support from other doctors. This is a thing you could do better than me. To exclude it as an argument. Understand? My parents are evidence. And those had been falsely attacked. I cannot correct everything if it is not true that I understand there have been false accusations, but it is not that necessary. It is rather, it is of course important if you could do so to do, but to exclude it as an argument. Many deaths because of several things, and then the will, the last will, the last decision to have the legacy prolonged with how many are dead, lying buried, or not even being buried. This is not to have a funeral, it is to accept that this is then depending on the state entities not to have own interests and to be very very strong. And this had been the accusation that immediately after the lost war, but this is not for me to prove, it is to exclude. To exclude it as an excuse, but to see it as a thing to consider, but not too much. Most likely my being raised had been that broad that I had been very often in movies. Then as a child sometimes did not understand, is it a movie I'm being asked to play, to have a better moral, not to be too shy and to learn to express myself even with body language, and that had been the idea as a pedagogical program. And then that stopped, and a little bit it went on, but this is to be set apart from legal things. And this now raises the question, are you interested to look into things, but do not, please do not put it all together. There could even be have been false accusations against courts and against the judgment of giving back what had been stolen, and you understand, someone being dead, and then thousands put it together to be more than little. But this is not the point. The point is to understand, to put it aside and not think, I want to have it that way. No. This is not my ambition. There had been wrong understanding before. There had been wrong understanding before, and then my whole voice had been made invalid, not valid anymore. German is my mother tongue because, or was it English? And this is another thing. The first month of my life had been somehow secret, and then you forget it. And therefore I need your knowledge that a child, and I now understand, even that had been, cannot judge every time if it is a play, a movie, if it is parents joking. And there had been daycare parents, and very often, and then all the church people. And those are now really to be set apart. A Sunday school teacher was called an uncle, and to others it looked like he had been the father because he had authority. And then it is not for 1 minute true that he really had authority as a father. This is to be understood. But I don't know if others knew that. Only recently it blew open that my mother had not been one of the few of her generation who was then having an own child. She was the generation of the old, let me say, of the old class. For me it was only known later, but it is not known recently, it dawns. But the false blaming had been there. You should have come earlier. Someone being on a trip, coming home, for example, and then, because my mother was of the few who was accepted as being of authority in this German main countryside. And this is a thing people now ridicule. But this is to be clarified. It is not for me to ask. It is for me to put it as it is. And then to understand that I do not want to question everything. And of course not to question it and then to put it anew before court. Some things are decided. and maybe many. So, but what not had been ever decided, it was what is mine. If it is a thing that is there, but I come 99% to the conclusion there is something, and there still had been, even before the death, the end of all my parents. This with Papa is special. This is special. This is me to show a picture for you. This is Papa. And Papa wanted to have his own family. And other things he did not communicate, but not with words, but communication could go much further. Communication is done pattern recognition, but Papa gave the idea not everything is going right, because people do not even consider to do much. That what was the idea, and then there came contradiction. Papa had been working hard for the care of this little family, but he was not the head of the family, and this is special. But he was the acting head of the family. No. Sometimes he was, sometimes he was not. And this I now say, knowing only recently that there is something. Before it had been working with the pressure to fulfill moral duty. Morally, many people had been pressed to work for the welfare of Europe. Mostly there had been no complaint. But I overheard it. It was communication to me, to understand the body language. And what was it all about? I now want to show you. This is about that what science brought about. And there is not a calculation how much it is worth. But for others, it was not the worth, the money, the worthful or the wealth that could come out of it. It was rather responsibility. As I said before, even the movie making folks first earn money for your living, and then those who funded or to give money had also the idea not to give fun and recreation only, but to have pedagogically something. Mr. Spielberg, he was mostly, I think, the perception of you and the open, a movie maker. And then it was not to ask the question if it is good or not. Being raised as a child, you understand it is morally a responsibility to do something for the welfare. But then at the end I understood Papa had been tricked. I did not know, he said, with Westphalia. What was it? Some said, now we have it, and others, Oh, how come? And those are remarks. And to question that is not for me. If government comes to point there's something wrong, how their behavior then is, has to be. But I now understand there's something. And this is a thing that has to do with inventions. And there had been the discussion, who did it? And I learned, ask the people, but those are no longer alive. I mean, ask the people who invented it. If those wanted to be Europeans, the Americans coming from, I understood very, very often with German names, are those wanting to be Bavarians and from Switzerland? In Chile, and this really is true, there was, in my perception, the communication, not with words only, but expectation, in quality. And this includes governmental common sense, good, righteous, and working, good working quality. And now understanding there's something, I feel not comfortable. I was raised not to take over responsibility too lightly, not too lightly. There had been a little bit critique. Officers who too fast in Yugoslavia, for example, said I did wrong, and then had been in Russian confinement, and then could not correct it. And the follow-up had been then, he took over responsibility, and it was not critique from people who wanted to judge him, but it had been with me communicated, understood his responsibility, and it was said he wanted to correct, but he was far away. And this really had been, I think, a general, or with another title. I was not raised to be with hate, but to hate false behaviorism. I hated to do something wrong and then have not the willingness to correct it. And this was not communicated as something to write down, but I saw it, and everyone was working on it. I was not having a leadership that was above reproach. It was rather respect. And I want you to tell me if there is something, but with respectful approach. But this is different in the world. And this I was not a model in physics. I wasn't weak, I was not sitting in a wheelchair, but not on the first ranks. And then there had been the saying of a doctor, a wrestler you can't be because of something with your bone system. And this had been good to understand from a mother. She wanted to have someone who is the best. But others said the best is to understand as broadband. And that was then me being good in nearly everything, but not too good to have the first rank, but good enough to be a follower, a successor. But follow and being tested on the way. And I was not liking the idea, having expectations and not understanding what would come out of it. And now understanding myself, others had been envious. Those worked to climb the ladder, and I did not work. I was asked and then had to work, of course, to please, to have the acceptance. This high quality demand, I think, was high enough, but hopefully not that high. I always had comparison children, others who were having it worse, even more expectations, and I did not earn the good grade. It is the quality thinking the world is having about Germany, to have that good quality, and there had been the saying, the tank was too good. You should have had 1,000 or 2,000 of it. They had been talking about warfare. My mother did not like it. Mama did not like it. Papa. But he had been raised as a pimp. But he did not like it. His papa said he was not wanting my papa. He's the raising father, but he had not too much legally. And this was not too much communicated, but it was enough communicated to say he wasn't having too much. I don't know how much. And this now raises the alarm. I should have known. I think the responsibility part had been with my mother, because my real father was still missing. She's looking strange. Yes, sometimes there was a little bit changing in the face to have security, and this was too little. I thought, hopefully this will not come again, that people were after those who could be witnesses to stop them maybe from witnessing. And this is no invention. Who helped those who had been regarded righteous but could witness against the interests of some? My mother said, and this was accepted, she was not wanting people to be pressured, but it was difficult to decide. And then had been really the churches who helped those who most likely would have had judgment too much with interest, and this was interest not a judge should have. And this is a good English for you, good enough for you to understand. This was accepted. The morals had been down. The responsibility had been there, but people disguised. But my mother had been tested. She was regarded to be righteous nevertheless. Sherlock Holmes has to disguise himself from time to time. I learned it, that in the Third Reich you could never have helped without having had the possibility to disguise. Sorry, the father was known to be a critic. And then he was guarded with Hitler Youth and with specialists. And then someone else helped to sit at home, the specialists had not been in the house, but those saw then the parents sitting there, but my father had been on the street. You understand, there could be something people then will make out of it. The inventions put in this, of course, as best as possible, but you have to work on it. Even the names wouldn't make someone as it looks like. Ask those themselves. Russia is a countryside with peoples. I do not want to decide. Being regarded as, for example, European, this might be easy. This is the continent. And some German people are bonded together, or the German people, with what? With a language. Austria then had, and this is something else, legally contracts, I think after World War I, but I do not want to go into that again, but maybe it is necessary that others do it. If I do it, and people now understand there are no interests, now, I mean, not to know, yes, there are interests, there are now interests, this is for some people a suspicion. And looking at it, you see, what the automobile or the car, my mother could describe the first ride with a little, I don't know if it is Benz or Mercedes, and this was of course interesting enough to remember it, then stopping at chemistry, but maybe the teacher taught it. Now I'm suspicious if my mother had been with her mother riding the first known motor engine car, four-wheel car, was it? And this is not embarrassing for me not to know it, because there had been that much inventions. There had been the invention of the train system, and those are many, not one but a couple of inventions. And then it was communicated where parts came from, and this of course was Britain or Great Britain, and it had been great, a center, but then with the system being an island, it was not in the center anymore. It had been, I think, in the center of other things, and still is. And this is important that my mother was not that shy. I learned that the German people, had been in the center of that much inventions, that it had been a little bit too much. People then coming and say, this is one of your men, and this as well, and then someone else said, if there is the name like a name pointing to Russia, this again, and this is possibly true because two networks are there. And I want to explain it, that it is not me demanding that I'm no slave driver and I'm no man who is owning other men. It is something that is not even the other side. In some countries, a leader is somehow in the possession of its people. This is rather me understanding. It had been from the time of industrialization, where the money system was evolved, the stock market system, and then there had even been communists' ideas being supported. Marx, he had support to think it over, but it is not the responsibility if you pay an author to write it down, or a thinker, not a psychiatrist, but someone, yes, psychiatrist, Jung and Freud. And this is a thing, of course, I think it over, this whole, is not Shakespeare English I use. It is not even yes, a desire maybe, but not necessary. It is not necessary, and it could then be embarrassing to people those I heard, and then those would stop because of having, for example, English and other languages where you had to ask back if you understood it right or not. But it is more important to understand people want to express themselves, and what I expect from you, that you have nearly the same idea. You want to know, what is he wanting to say? And I want to say, I feel not only responsibility, but then have, of course, interest. What if it is true that those elderly people had a life calling, and it was not patriotism, it was maybe something like it, but not patriotism that you could describe politically. It had been their roots. Those wanted me to do what we communicated. But I was never wanting to have conflict other than in the competition. Conflict, if it is better, for example, to be a musketeer or an Italian dragone or Russian dragoner. No, here the Russians are called what? Tatars? No, Tatar, no, it's a brand mark. Yes, and this is something, my people, maybe he might say he is in my people collection as well. This is something where you have common grounds. And that I learned. But my mother, she was seeing the lack, I saw it as well, to have recognition for the thing that then was difficult. And the excuse is with Americans, and again, it is necessary to show a type of human that had been good, but this human should not be a fear to others, and this is difficult. Imagine after all, it could end up that then there is another patriotism. Yeah, Americans would say, or what, but some are suspicious, and me too. But me not being on one side, and that had been with critique, I can't. The heart has two chambers, and knowing the system, and then the demand to have recognition of our own, its own, their own, no, its own, my own. My mother would say, but who are the Germans? There had been a false box, and it still is. If you are with people and talking the same language, and this too easy, I have no box. This makes it difficult, but on the other side, I need a network. And I always thought it is the reliability of the German officer, I mean the Deutsche Beamte. I mean the officer who had been sworn in earlier days, sworn in to the constitution or to the emperor, to the constitution of the German Reich, to the constitution of the Weimar Republic, and then it had been wartime, sworn into Hitler. But I never ridiculed it. I was not allowed. I was explained, and this was difficult. People did not know. My mother said she was 1 or 2 years thinking it could be of some good. The women were having exercise, the allowance of exercise, in the first 2 years, and then she understood this is false religion. And to understand that this is true, the witnesses who were regarded to be strange, those had been the schooling first, also Bildungsbürger, ideal. Those had the, this is a German word, science schooling, idealism, something like it, where it is said, child, it is important to learn. And this is a result of it, of this character demand. And being abroad, I saw it was admired, and it could be true, but please understand, in this country it is strange that there is the admiration more from the outside than in the inside to its own. And this has sometimes been that cold that it was rather than me not using the word Deutsch anymore in Germany. Always then being aware not to be a patriotism supporter. And this has never been understood abroad, and I need your understanding that you support me, because I'm a critique of it myself, but always having been, not only feeling, but having been that alone, I need the support that it is possible to follow the idea that science had been the quality brandmark, and it still should be. But a science that is detecting things as it had been. And to that, I need the sources. I need the old newspapers as it had been printed, I'm looking at headlines. In German, of course, I can still remember how it had been verbally, word by word, also wörtlich. This is word by word, exactly as it had been, and I'm not finding anything. And this has to do with the old conflict of intelligence working the industry and the politicians and what else. And not exactly what those had done, but that it had been the case, because I needed to explain me that I was very cautious to keep out of it. To explain that the neighbors are not that easily into my affairs. It had been a firewall that was there in my system, in my bias, but not with others who did not understand it had been necessary. And this had to do with the trust that had been entrusted in me to know things, what people wanted to build up again after the time the Cold War was then hopefully over. And is it, or is it not? The Cold War, that meant we can't do it right now. The world, the state of the conflict is not allowing it. And with us, there had been the rebuilding, science, good schooling, and with quality. But of course, you are talking it over, and people trusted me to do what I already had in my character, not more. Those who wanted to give me inheritances wanted exactly that. Sometimes I said, write it, to give it into writing, and then I could remember it better. But that is not what I'm after. If those decided it otherwise, it had been a good conversation. And something like being then assured that others are supporting my standpoint, my point of view. And there's so many going to other countries, and it was accepted. I couldn't do it. The whole circumstances did not allow to move my my home. But I had been to Australia, and then it was strange. Even a gold mine most likely would then be, but no understanding it then maybe was not something being passed on. As people looked at things and showed me assets, as if I could decide. But for me it had been like a test, because always the question had been, what do you have you in mind right now to test me, how I would govern the whole thing. And the gold mine had been at that, I believed the sayings of the operators, had been of some value, but the workers put away of the income and the machinery, and then there had been the rebuilding, and it was with me interesting to understand a gold mine is not the best thing to have 1,000 men to earn its income. It is rather a thing where a couple of it could live off. This was my education, had been my education. And then there had been a farm. And sometimes I thought those people wanted to have someone with the interest of their worldview would be support, prolong the legacy. I don't know if that had been the expectation, but to do it as I already had it in my character. And I now feel ashamed for the system that is responsible. And this is then Australia as well, if it has not or had not been done right. But I have to trust those decided otherwise. If there is an error in the system, what is with other assets I visited shortly? And that had to do with my own being known as a son of respected forefathers. I never thought about the idea that others could not be in the line. It was not me looking for it, others looked for me, and this is for you. If you had heard about something, to understand it was not my decision not to go into the working process, but this is not an option. I'm now looking for real grounds. It is not an option to interpret the decision of a forefather. If the decision was thought over for quite a time, I think it was then written down precise enough to look into it. It is important that there could be an error. The error could be that people thought I was living somewhere else. Having read enough detective and criminal novels, understanding the other side, so to speak, you could trick people in the wrong post books. This is not proven, and it is conspiracy theory, but having heard enough about people not always admiring the character and standpoint of my forefathers, of at least the three, and then some regarded themselves forefathers, and I think it could well be that an uncle but I'm not after conflict. I need the support of governments, not only one, because governments or banks I regard as governments as well. Yes, I need it. Thinking from the side of forefathers, or those who want them to be predecessors, those would secure it with documents. And there are other possibilities. You could somehow redirect things. Knowing the internet, there is possibility to redirect it with a false redirection. And it is not about good English, it is about understanding. I'm now thinking like a detective. Those have been with own detectives. Those had been in the business of being detectives. And not knowing about it, of course, suddenly he's talking about an ancestry. Think about the possibility that it had been better after Karl. This is true, 1930, around that the world changed around that year, and then he was not having had doctors anymore who had been willing to clean the wounds in his head. And of course it had been a shock. He died because of it. People said he had been very old, but being old, there's no excuse then not to have the full right to have doctoring. Some said he could not afford it. Well, this would be known to others as well, but had it been the danger he was supporting Stresemann? Possibly so. Stresemann had been, if it is right what people said, or had it been someone else, was it Karl himself? He was supporting the idea to make Switzerland the home country of Geneva, United Nations, or the United Nations in Geneva. There was a talk that it was, after all, it was a French-speaking city, but the negotiations and then the support to have it there could make you enemies. But this is not that I accuse someone as being enemy. This is not my wish. And please understand that this could bring people to the point, and diplomacy in earlier days, when it was not that evolved as today, then there had been the calculation, not immediately, but yesterday, even before, to have a benefit of the danger of others to forfeit something. Merchandise, this would be then to fill in the market, or to take over a corrupt business. With a gold mine, you could hinder good machinery, but this is illegal, of course. But as a detective, think about it. Hinder the machinery to work right, to bring the worth down, and then wait long enough to buy it, and wanting to have the benefit of quality rather than of tricks. And that is what I was raised. I'm not saying that the whole countryside had been of honest people only, but I was raised with the idea we do not need to trick. The stones on the board, the names then later had been with stone at the end, like I don't know. Stones on the board had been against the cunning of other interest groups. This in German, das haben wir nicht nötig. We do not need it. Und die Namen, die auch mit Stein enden, die sollen angeblich, muss ich sagen, damit sich keiner da zu nahe getreten fühlt, dann auch gesammelt worden sein, um die Intrigen des Gegners zu bekämpfen. Dafür mussten sie natürlich auch kennen. To fight the intrigues of the enemy, of the economic enemy. And for that, of course, the intriguing techniques had to be known, as a detective does it. But we do not need it, because the center of industrialization, also das Zentrum der Industrialisierung, hatte das durch Leistung und nicht durch Intrigen. Das heißt nicht, dass es das hier nicht gegeben hat. And it's important that I address in my thinking the people who went out of Europe did so not because those did not like the historic countryside and the forest and the singing of the European birds, but it was rather to have a better life. I couldn't go somewhere else, and sometimes I was not pleased with it, that my mother, the elder mostly, she said I was raised to care for the Germanic people. Also für das deutsche Volk heißt ja eigentlich für die deutschen Völker. Also wir haben auch schon oft darüber gesprochen. We spoke about it. It does not mean, I said in German, to care for the German people as one, but for the German people. And then there had been the emigrated in it as well. There had been interest to search for Amelia Earhart as well, and to defend the originals of Bonnie and Clyde. And in that process, it most likely came out that those had been killed, the originals, and then someone else played, to do a trick, Bonnie and Clyde. And in that then would be, this had taken place in America, and the call had come from there, and it was very good to understand. It was a raising of the acceptance that there are people who want to do it righteously. I don't know what came out of it. But it was not too lightly, the conclusion, and there had been thinking and detecting and overthinking it again and again. There are tricks, even to hinder police work. And the tricks, this is not, but yes, of course, this goes to Greece and Italy and beyond. But the inventions, very much of it, are having not only German names but Russian names as well. But please be aware, I do not want to go it through the roof, to let it go through the roof, but I'm not responsible what will come out of it. But having learned that others do so, it is better for me to think about it as well, not to take over responsibility. You can't. You can't take over responsibility, what others make out of it, but consider that there had been things I did not understand. With me, I was kept out of the military thing. I did not know about it. I only discovered recently, yes, it must have been true. There had been a family in the business of developing and doing merchandise with the equipment of military in the 18th century, 19th century, and this mainly, and then with civil carts and civil ship vessels and civil planes, but this does not mean it is based in Germany. There had been companies, child companies, so to speak, in America, and those working there have been Americans, but the inventions have been exchanged, and this does not mean it all went from Germany. It sometimes had been not known. It was a network, most likely to all countries where there had been stock markets, as it is said, to London and to others, Paris and Rome. But if it is true, I can't underline that those inventors were all patriots, but most likely there was something like having the self confidence. I mean, this is German, Selbstbewusstsein, the confidence that it had been the language and the admiration, and then of course diversified. And I did not understand fully if it had been on one side and how it come. It had been many sides, and now understanding it had been true, the legendary telling that there had not been one country. Even the putting inside of the Austrian Empire, with me it is not fully clear, and with others this is of no interest. But what is of interest is, as I said before, there had been, and with foreigners it was that I felt myself as a foreigner, traveling the world. You are only in 1-2 countries, no foreigner. In all others you are. And then foreigners are not foreigners, but even those, I thought, those would support American or British or French or Russian or other interests. I was with mixed feelings that those had larger respect and admiration for the for the inventors than those I would expect it to have it. And this is something to be understood. And maybe people don't like it. With me it had been being 2 weeks somewhere else, or 1 week somewhere else. I already wondered why there had been that much tension, in German Verkrampfung, in Europe. Therefore, I need your viewpoint and your feelings, and I mean feelings in the sense of your sensible siebter Sinn. What is it good? Your seventh sense, I don't know if it is possible, your knows, your judgment. I had been in Man Tracker, and it is true. I thought, what else? I am a Man Tracker? Please show me how those worked. What? And I said how I would do it. Look at the surrounding and then see the difference and explain what could have been there. I do not need it that people expect things, but it had been. And by whom did I learn? Several humans, 2 legs, mostly 2 arms, and mostly 2 legs. The semen had been missing, and 1. Yes, I mean it, humans. Yes, Eskimos have been there as well. You can't see too much of them because of the stuff those are wearing. I had been a short time in an ice palace. Not too long, but People did it to show me, and I always thought it is to have someone of the old system. The Herrenhut had been not only missionaries but developers in such a cold environment, and there had been admiration. I did not take it too personally, but I thought, oh, this as well, forefathers, those shoes are rather quite large. Later I learned those had casualties, and I do not want you to be a casualty. Others said, I protect you. And those did. But I drew myself a man out of the cold sea. And this had been the quality as well. There had been with General Custer, George Custer, the questioning why he did care for his soldiers. He did not had the result. If he had done it the way it had been customary. And I thought about it. I did not. I never gave, in a testing situation, no quick answer. If you don't know, so I have to think it over. And he did it that way. Of course, if you do not have that many others, but it must have been, or if you had already invested or knew them, it was not the case with other military. There you are put together, and the commander, you understand, thinking about it, you could ask others, but this was how I was raised. Someone of the old system is there, and I'm not having self-pity. I saw others being not respected too much because having said that those are Germans in the 70s. I don't know what will happen with them. Suddenly, some heroes, and he's not the only one. With Americans, I think those will, no, those are Americans as well as others. America is put together of good people. It's being put together of good people, and those, I think, had been first of all their own effort, the effort of the parents, but it had been the character of the language, the character of the whole schooling system and the whole belief system. And then in Brazil, there had been admiration, the good order in a village. Yes, I did not even only overhear it. I had the interest myself. And I thought, where is now that village in Baden-Württemberg? Where in Baden, near Switzerland? Where is it? Those were still had been still communicating the stories, and then Volkswagen. Had been building a factory there, and if people are in a position of being engineers, it is still the old quality, of course, but how many are left? And then, of course, I already knew the immigrants from Italy, and those are being trained to have Prussian, yes, it is. Russian quality from their hands. Therefore it is rather the kind of phrasing. And some had critique about their own, so to speak, countrymen. And this is of interest. I was raised that way. Critique is not to judge someone, it is rather to look for a good way and to accept. Some things are maybe hindrances, but to have the freedom according to the law, and the law is not to be narrowed too much. The freedom of the DDR, of Middle Germany, GRD, German Republic Democratic or something like it, Deutsche Demokratische Republik, and I'm not too much into preciseness. Why? Because I don't like the grammar-loving, grammatic-loving people too much. This is good. This is good, but too much preciseness then could narrow in the children, and those will grow with double standards. And I stopped with, it wasn't voluntarily, I had to stop with Dennis. I played it, I'm not too much after it that I had been there, because it had been fun, but not my character. This was to play something, to have more boldness. I can remember I had been there, and then it was a saying, "Oh, you can't do it that way." Not to malign my name. Yes, it is a character. I have been the acquaintance of a circus clown behind the scenes. That had been very funny. And I learned that is training. But I don't like it too much. Because with that face, you will not understand, or I am not understanding the real problem. First of all, there is not one box, Germany. This is not a big problem, everyone knows it, but traveling and then visiting those who had complaints, I understood, oh, there's something. And people trusted me, and this trust should still be worth it. But you can't trust me to do miracles. And others did not do that. Those who said, no, I won't sell it, had a less good life. And I can't decide if it is good or not, but my mother was stubborn, but then she said, she reported it, that she was pushed to do things. It was even recorded that this could be invalid. And this really had to do with state contracts. I don't know what ones. A contract is not valid if the contracted content is not, but this is not dangerous. It is not an excuse. But it should be known, this is serious, me saying, my mother said you can look into it. If it is a thing that would concern me, would be of an effect to me, you are not someone wanting to have the benefit of a church collection, because this is a holy thing. With my mother's, with Papa, also Papa and me, but Papa is a little bit difficult to explain. Papa for a long time had been in a secret opposition to my mama, both mamas. And those are both, there is no mother who did it for the other. Yes, it had been, of course, the asking to help. But no one could lose the position. I was asked, and then today I'm angry that I was pushed to the problem of thinking to lose one. 1982. And nearly we had been tricked. Nearly there had been a trick. And I need the openness that I do not break things. But I know others did so and knew it. Is there then the excuse that it was not possible the other way? Maybe, maybe not. But first of all, I need the understanding that, of course, I did not want to have another war. I had been asked that moral questions. If I could imagine to be happy with a poor life. I saw the others, and maybe someone was listening, or I wanted not to have a bad conscience to say to others, my parents are poor. If you meet a child and you are talking about future possibilities, the normal and the way we did it, and the ordinary way, of course, the way ordinary is that what I expected. I had, of course, the hope, but not too much, because people already said so. Do not believe all those promises that you will have an inheritance. And then again, and I thought, is this something the owners want to raise their children? For example, if you're not good enough, I will give it to this boy. And this was really not only once or twice. And then trustees were looked for. But now I understand this is all something, please don't consider me to believe that anymore. And I'm not saying this is politically, but it could have grown to that false idea. My mother had not been a state entity. Maybe till 1918. Maybe till 1918. But then there had been companies made out of the whole. No, out of part of it? I don't know, but most likely it was then already divided. And then? And this is important. I have nothing. I could not study because of money. And that is 200,000, 300,000. The whole thing would have been demanding of. Yes, 500,000 for the whole university, and it was not possible. And people can't say I was not good enough. My mother said you need a little bit better surrounding because of all the difficulties, and there was the expectation people would be a little bit envious. Yes, but not that much, only a little bit. And it was explained because not being Catholic and not being Protestant, being an outsider, and this really had been the case, but not that I had chosen it. Some say this is now your own business. No, it is not. But now understanding there was the vacancy of state entity. But this does not mean you do not have two accounts. This had been separated and has to be kept separated. I will not change my idea that there are several accounts, and I do not want others to take responsibility. I already know that then others have an excuse. Who could that be? People most likely first will go to the chancellor, then to some president, and then to some other. We have Landkreisämter, we have don't know what. This is not as it is in a country where the state is from of old. This is rather deliberately not a country, luckily, not anymore, who could take away. You cannot make contracts with presidents, chancellors, and ministers. This is not possible. I heard the wishful thinking. We want to make contracts with a country in Europe. To whom could I go? And I'm of course not in a circle. It could have come out that way. Not in the IHK, not in einem Unternehmerverband. And there had been people who were offering this service, but did not come out. And there could always, because it was rather business than private knowledge, been a misdirection, not a redirection, and this would be a catastrophe. Therefore, this is the warning. The warning, please, look into it. Catastrophe could be if a redirection had not been known till now. And I couldn't say so, because there had been that many contacts and that many offerings of, we look for someone, and then we give you, first of all, in one case, 80,000. And if you are good in it, we will entrust more to you. But this is optional. I'm not looking for optional things. I'm not applying for something. I'm looking for my own. Applying for something, you would submit to the idea, you will then be contracted. And this then would be a business where I would work for someone. And now understanding, those I know, but with Papa, with my father I mean, this is even more delicate. And Karl, the father, and of course him. And there had been, he was dead, this is I think symbolic, but he might have been not maybe the raising papa, the raising father, no, the father I think. The old could be the legal, but this is rumor. Rumor that could be very serious. Looking for a motive is the first thing a detective does. And I was very much into that detecting business, even with authors who said the real stories are from or out of contacts with policemen or with the prisoners, who explained what could happen and to warn people as well. Therefore, I don't like the whole conspiracy theory warning. Some conspiracy theories should be understood, not to do it. And this is a photograph I remember. Look a little bit cheeky, but I was not wanting the idea. Mama said, "You're not in America. Do not play funny." I like to be in America. Those were more relaxed than you can imagine, having been a child. Maybe not with everyone it had been that, with many moral conflicts and international organizations, United Nations that is, understanding about the history would help me. But I'm looking and not finding too much on the internet. And this is the problem of the internet. That is no real evidence. And what I am giving you is the information. There's a need for evidence. And this could be there. I'm quite sure it had been, now we have more important things to do. Because having been with the United Nations, I heard things. Could be misunderstanding. There could also be false information to blow it up. But I don't think so anymore. To blow it out of proportion, this is not good technique. That then the state has to solve it. This is not good. For example, he was having that much that it could well be half of something. To make it larger than it is, but even if it is large, you could blow it to draw the devil on the wall. And this is ugly. And I have the suspicion it is done by those who are doing it all the time. There had been the saying, different schooling systems of diplomacy. And then the conspirators, or how are they called, who are working with techniques, for example, as I said, in the merchandise field, to work on someone you want to buy. You could, of course, bring him into trouble. A detective would then, of course, have something to document, not to have a talk. You can't do it privately. But this could be there, and there could be also the blowing out of proportion. What me was concerned, I heard it, that my mother said she was looking a little bit more different. This photograph is artificial, a little bit. As if I would be a danger to take the color. This, well, for me it was ridiculous. The coloring out of others, to let them look rather shallow. This is applause. he is good and his results are very the best, but others think our character will then have bad grades. I heard it and thought, why do people do that? Maybe others would think he is well off. The tricks could be many. To prevent, of course, the other to have not what they want, but this is sneaking into something. And this could be done not from one side, but from inside the side, and then push it into the shoes, or push it under their carpet, looking like someone else would be behind it. Yes, this is not only, das könnte im Fünfeck sein. This is detecting like Sherlock Holmes does it. And I think Sherlock Holmes is rather someone very interesting to read. But nevertheless, it is proven, yes, there had then been the accusation, it was an echo, and you can only talk for yourself, what you want. But then the accusation is broadened, and it is said there are people in your church, and I had to defend myself and saying the church is not my choice. There is no other. And this first has to be put aside. There is no church that can give me a character. There is no sport club that could give me character. But the whole idea now is to understand it had not been the times. It had not been the times that you think people are a little bit crazy, or it is a country who is having trouble to morally explain the human disaster in World War II during the time. There had been morally a discussion about bombing and if it was justified according to a law, or how and so on, how it could have been done otherwise. And then there had been, and this is with other families as well, the conflict between, but I had not the conflict myself. This is important. This was a demand. My mother said it is important that you keep out of it. You keep out of it. And I did. Maybe people then, in a false replacement, had someone else thinking he was me. Maybe in a group, like the schooling group, or sports club, or in the neighborhood, this is to be kept aside. I do not even talk about it. Yes, it was difficult. Keep out of it meant sometimes to have no friends at all. Yes, you stay at home. Parties are not allowed. You understand? This really had been the case. Parties not allowed. It was not explained too much. Some thought the world is evil, but it had been special. And this is, of course, a little bit being ashamed that it was not possible to explain me otherwise. Why was no explanation? Because with others it had been the same. Did the children of the so-called supporters of the Third Reich, the so-called Nazis, did those knew? Some don't. But I knew that was not the case. Therefore, the explanation had been Maybe some converted Nazis are now in government. Of course, everyone had to be converted, otherwise there had been problems. And this really was true. And then maybe under the surface it was still those had been with the enemy. No, it had been something without, and this was strange. How I wanted to explain myself. No defense, but to explain. How explain? It was not against German interests, because my mother knew to have a resistance. My mother knew the aftermath, the long-term effect. Since 1941-42, it was known the war is lost. The Wunderwaffe was not there, and I even overheard the atomic bomb we did not support. Was it true or not? I don't know. But I believed that he was having ethical problems with the idea to do such a mass destruction construction. But others were not having that problem. But it is not for me to be the judge. It's only to understand this conflict was behind it, and please put it aside. This is very much mathematical, and I do not take over what people blow up out of proportion. There could be the rightful passing on from others according to a law that is there, or had been there, but that is counting. But mathematically, we are not a church, and there is no pastor who has to say something, anything is without. It is mathematically. And this, please, first. And then there could be the interest of, for example, those in the Foreign Legion, and the interest of those who did not want their children to have something of other worldview to be supported, but I'm very cautious to go into that. You understand? Others are indirectly affected, but what is with the support that had been there to rebuild old mansions and old castles and to renovate them? This is extra as well. This is extra, everything extra. It could be that my name is in it, I mean the name of my parents, or my name, and this was then sometimes with the siblings' names, but it is important. It had been me, but I wanted to have help, but those have no idea. Yeah, those there's one else, but he is even more having been under pressure that he was not wanting to talk about the old things anymore. And the pressure had not to be openly communicated. It was rather unknown. And this is the thing I don't like. There had been very much unknown, totally unknown to me, so-called friends. We had no common friends, none. This is very strange, and others said this is no family, and maybe you are right from your standards, and I follow the idea now. But I say it is a kind of family. My mother said, I care for the others as well, but as those needed. You understand? That is differently. This is never to be distributed from any other party, from some other party. You understand? The decision. This is not me. And this is Papa. And Papa looked different. But this is something that is pointing to the character, Hardy and Stanley. And there had been a competition in the Ruhrgebiet, and Papa had a good playing of the, I think, Stanley, but Papa was then falsely put into some character he was not. Some thought he'd like to be the man who was giving away, but I think Papa was rather under pressure and was not wanting to go into conflict, to protect the whole. And Mama did the same. And of course it is not for me to decide if it was a wise thing, but my mother, she had trust in the Deutsche Beamte. And then some policemen said, "We don't like you." What did people say to police? Officially, I mean. What did they communicate to police? What is that? Oh, that is only character. Well, you see, only character with some idea to show it's not prison clothes, but it's looking like I don't like it. But this is only character, not too much. Please don't put anything in it. It's of no use. I mean, understand it is representation of a character. This is a character as well. I was asked to laugh, but look at the haircut. This is to have some money in the pocket to do it yourself. But how was it looking to the outside? Like silly, and it is the same now. And this all the time. You understand? It's no excuse to the world. I've learned to live this a poor state on this level. And then having not a good reputation, you do not find a job. Those people said, those surrounding people, merchants and so on, and industry men said, "We do not give your son eine Ausbildungsstätte." I don't know what people had communicated about me. Was it the rumor? Yes, of course it had been. And I could say it in German, but those people are used to look at it from a judicial standpoint. Only very few or no people anymore look at the moral responsibility. And therefore, it could come from a whole system that I myself should look medically at some difficulty. And this, the nose is not there, but that is not the brain. And now the brain is attacked from diagnoses ridiculously not there, but in the file, on the paper. And I will not go to other doctors and have another meddling in it. This will make it worse. And how long has it grown? For how long has it grown now? And this is important. I will not switch to German this time. This is only background. This is my private thing where I had been born, but this is now medically important because some of the ailments, not illnesses, but it could grow up to real hard stuff, illnesses, have to do with the so-called difficult birth. But it was rather preborn, very, very, very small, I think. Me having, wanting to tell about me having a hand that could hardly clasp the finger of my main nurse. There was another one, very lovely and kind, but some hold me with a distance. I think not to have too much bonding. This was for quite a time, and being born very young, I've now looked at the internet a little bit. I can be glad that I have only the few little, but those could grow up to be very, very difficult. I need help, but it is now rather ridiculed. Look for a job where you can earn 100. Yes, those sibling sister had written to me, $100, as $100 would help. I'd rather have 1,000 out of free will to do it. This would keep me out of trouble. But there's nothing and no understanding. Could well be that the whole industrial and other surrounding here in Osnabrück could have had the idea he is not worth it. And I would accept it as being their free will to say we have other expectations. I'm not expecting them to help me. I'm not in a church that those would then help me. But I'm in a society where we help others. Therefore, this should be out of the interest to support the character of this whole countryside. Please understand, it is you I'm trusting more than those who are here in this country, because I heard that those going away said, this will be difficult, but you can survive. Look for people you can bond to. But it was expected to be difficult, and it was too much a difficulty. This does not make me a lunatic, but others want the excuse, and I want no conflict about it. Really, I don't need it. I don't need conflict. This mama, she was having printing. She could not, a printing expectation, schooling books, schooling literature. My mother said she did not receive it. Later, government should give it to me, but is it an expectation? Maybe something the Allies had in expectation? Put it on an extra sheet of paper. But I'm not forgetting about Westermann and so on. And then other rumors. Mama herself said she was tricked into a film where she was not having clothes, and she did not know. It had been a film, a movie taken. And then her reputation wasn't there anymore as it had been before. And I said to Mama, she asked, I will never move away from you. That had been a trick. You can trick everyone, but I don't like it. I wouldn't advertise it, but I'm now saying there had been tricks. And Mama said it, and I was sad she did not communicate that earlier. And she did not 100% give me the information she asked if I would move away. And I said, no, I already understand. There are tricks, but I'm not advertising it. I myself looked closely, but if others, maybe there are new drugs, I think Mama had a drug in her drink. And I did not say that. I expect that. If she wasn't wanting something, but I'm not advertising and I'm not excusing. I do not want to have something in the whole business, but I wouldn't move away from Mama. And the same with Oldmar. Before the therapy, blown by the wind. It was given as a voyage, as recreational, as like a tour in the southern states. She wrote down all the dreams that were blown away, and those dreams showed that there had been a society that were living from one festival to the other, and this could have been Austria or Silesia, and those festivals had been in the mansions of Herrenhäuser and so on. And in the Wagner family, there it had been. Only 2-3 men said, we need culture. We need culture. Our own youth is now behaving. In earlier days, we would have been driven out of the country. And I say it in my own words, and I don't like the idea that my mother was trusted, but then tricked. And there was no one to excuse her. But she was defending herself, and she had me as someone who understood, and this bonded us together, Mama as well. I didn't like the idea that it gave me a benefit, and it is no benefit till now, but it is understanding that me as a detective, I want to be righteous. And there had been tricks, and with me as well. And people had been there being righteous, good detectives. I'd like you to be a detective, or to trust me that I can grow, not only to be that. I do not like the profession of a detective. It is on the sideline for everyone. For everyone, a chemist man, or a biological man, or a medical man, or someone inventing physics and electronics, he is working like a detective and helping others and being helped from others. And it is also in the businesses of housings and business of farming. Monsanto had been there as a name, and I immediately understood it is not one. It is inside of the whole company, different groups. Therefore, do not think about things like one box. Think about any group not as a group of one integrity. But no excuses, please. A detective is needed, and it is needed to have not too much trust. You can trust the one who is not trusting himself too much. But rarely I found people. Yes, I found I was more of self-critique than my mother. But then me starting to do that, both mothers, and Papa couldn't express himself that well. He couldn't, but I'm very sad he trusted me, but I had no means to help him. I thought about the idea to rent an own apartment and to move my parents there, but I couldn't. I had to do night shift. Therefore, I do not want to say too much. This not helping was having a very much negative effect to the whole surrounding. I couldn't help others. Not the uncle, not the aunt, not the elders, and not others, and those did not understand. It was always said, you are young, you can work somewhere else. And then I had to be more careful. There had been a bank robber below the seniors' residence. He was having the same catalogue, and he was looking for cheap and good clothing as well, and he had the same trouser, the same trousers and the hose, and the same jacket, and then he was busted. And a co-worker said he thought it was me. Yes, he had a face that was like, I saw the difference. I saw the difference in the nose and so on, but I thought, this is strange. This is strange. At home, it is somewhere else, Rothaargebirge it had been. At home, it is rather this home, one of the homes. The others I did not get. Yes, I had the dream, New England, the dream, Alaska, the dream, Tasmania, the dream, somewhere else, Schwarzwald, Switzerland, of course, out of reach. Those people had expectations, and then a rumor came up, and you are then fishy. And I had to expect it, me being in the position to employ someone, to give someone a job. Would I go into the effort to clear a false rumor? I'd rather don't expect that. Maybe knowing someone, but it wasn't that close. It was only church-going knowledge. Sisters and brothers, churchgoers, and then there was the false understanding, and I was fed up. One was a sister, and I said, it is a sister from church, and the other said, I already made the decision, and I thought she is good enough to fill in the job. And this really has to be understood, because my responsibility is finding out an error I could never understand. People did not understand. I was in a country there had been many sisters and brothers, and it was a large tribe. I never was in a tribe, but I said, we are now like brothers. Does this make this boy a brother? Yeah, I respect him to protect me. If a wolf is coming or bear, then you need this bonding, like going on a hunt. I had been in a race, in a sledge race, not the long distance, the short one. And the dog trainer, I felt bonded to him, and still do. I could not help him. Yes, dog training and the German Shepherd line, and then the Belgian Shepherd was supported to grow into standard. And there is then the Canadian line, German Shepherds, the Belgian, of course, is then a new one. And then the East line, the West line, and I couldn't do anything because it is expensive to raise a dog. But there was me being a dog leader, even having the showing of the ability of the dog that was trained by someone else, but then represented with me at an airport. This was fun on the sideline. This is all aftermath, and I have no accusation against myself, nothing. This was all my word, I do it. But if someone wants to make a contract, me supporting horses, I'd rather say, what? A contract? I do it, it is my character. I couldn't go to Australia to open the Olympics. The man from Vancouver, I thought he was, maybe he had other homes. He was a travelsman, stockbroker. He wanted to invite me, but I said I can't go there. I have that much travel difficulties finding the right doctor to treat my allergies. Now I understand this is ridiculous. I could only go to the state doctors. And there are differences as well, but the invitation, was it officially? Then I'd rather explain it. I'd rather explain why I wasn't having the funds. Yes, it was because of money problems. But he had been a visitor after church. He had been a visitor after. You don't tell him your money problems. If you asked him, expect not to know too much. Now I'm quite open. I understand this is responsibility. It is about $1,000 a month. I'm not taking over responsibility. What this festival that had been planned, was it Qatar? This is not my responsibility. No. There came a politician and said, you'd rather don't do it. How did he learn about it? You can't do anything if you are warned by an official. You'd rather don't do it. That is, oh, you have not enough money to travel, and then you'd not even expect the support of official government. But this is not an accusation against him. It is rather, what did people say? I'm not worth to be supported, or is it the custom never to do it? Or is it that behind all that is some competitor I'd never had? I was never competing with youth to be the better, to run faster. I'm the only child. This was good and this was bad. I'd like to have others. My mother said, you can do it with them. I'd like to have the other siblings to help me. A berry farm, a cherry farm, and then the bee working, I had those as hobbies. Not fulfilled it, but those would then have had maybe, don't know, 50,000 a year. I would invest in it as a company chief. Yes, it is quite a thing. I heard how much a horse racing team is worth a year. There's nothing in comparison. Maybe I'd have an own windjammer. There had been support. Yes, I was dreaming to be in the successorship of others. But this was a dream, not fulfilled. Blown up, blown by the wind, but no understanding. This is ridiculous. Are they competitors, politicians? No. Or even nobility houses? This would be walking over a dead man. This is financially dead countryside. There's nothing. Then came someone at the doorstep. I said, no, I don't like it. My mama said, do not work with the Allies. Then you are in a group and you have a special law that hindered the growing after World War II. This is known. This is open knowledge. In the papers it had been. Not now, you won't find it. But this is a warning. I took heed. And this had been a photograph I hated, because I was sad, and then there had been the saying, can't you even look funny? In English say cheese. And then this haircut is not that important, but no training, no physical training. I then was sparing a penny or two a day and buying myself some bodybuilding to have a little bit more muscles. But it was all really. After half a year, I could avoid it. And then came people ridiculing me. Why don't you do it? Not understanding that the lack of money. And then even the saying, we have to report home. And we can't say anything bad. And from the Arab, some had been, and I said, say the truth. Yes, I'm well off. I'm not sick, but I'm not healthy. Maybe those did rather, yes, there have been but privately, after church, those did not say where they came from. Therefore expect not that ugly a thing. This had been from unbelievers. In my belief, you would have a competitor or two or 1,000, but not use inhuman means. And in my idea, I would rather be on both sides. I'd be in the system doing merchandise without being a Jew. Without being a Jew. This is important. My mother said, we are no Jews. And even the tribe from Malachi, I did not understand. How come there had been a small, it was said, a small estate somewhere in Jerusalem. And then it was said, it isn't there anymore. And I thought it is one of those legions, one of those legendary stories. And I'd say this could be something that would accuse others. I don't know if that is possible. What do you expect from others? To be miracle workers? To ask me and then know anything without me wanting to communicate my problems? You don't do that. You would bring shame on the parents. Papa said, I do not want others to support you. Papa said, this is my real father. I heard some of those children could still remember, but this is nothing special. He was there and showing himself. I don't do it, but he did it. It was explained for the benefit of the children to understand. Even an elderly, he must have been quite of age, but physically fit, could do a thing or two, and as a role model, sometimes you do it, but you are not like a Gockel. You are no Gockel, also kein eitler Hahn. You are only doing it because necessary. But if others came and they don't understand, after church, many other cultures have been there, not only Arabic, Russians, Yugoslavian, Baltic. If those did not say what they, from whom those, no, those did not even say those had others in the back. You don't say it. You know what, churchgoers, it was not my choice to go in church, but it is a church environment, okay? It is a church environment, and you have no idea how important it is to be tolerant. Even no understanding, those had been with faces. But those were going around, and you don't say that you want to have a wealthy life. You'd rather don't play. It is not as an excuse. This is to clarify that this had been a dangerous time. I knew some of it, and it is a protection. And churchgoers, if you say something, those then would argue and break the stuff about you, also den Stab über dich, das kann auch noch sein, deswegen habe ich die auch nicht gemocht. Das bin ich, schwach, Illushöhe. Da war dann einer aus der Türkei. There had been a Turkish man from the old Osmanian area. Later I understood he wanted to know one thing or two. And I was glad he asked, because I went home and asked myself. I had to ask myself, and then my parents, Mama said, oh, don't dig into it. Mama said that. She thought it was dangerous, but my mother said, it is not good that others know about it. It is no good that others know it. Where is the danger? That someone from the old Osmanian area, Greece, then there was someone else on another place, in another place. It was the ordinary asking after church like others did it. Are you satisfied with your life? Of course, I played honestly that my parents were poor. I wanted to change that. And you can, as a poor man, have a satisfied life. Of course, now I understand it is a thing I would not talk about, or rather tell them else. Das geht ja gar nichts an. It is nothing of their business. But it happened that at the age you answer questions. It is no business, I decided. Okay? This had never been a question, it is only to clarify. But some topics, those knew something. And it would be something ridiculous, as it had been with a Sunday school teacher. And there he said, I do not understand English, but he said yes sometimes, I think. It is of course sarcasm, not to ridicule him, but the whole circumstance. How dare to ask a Sunday school teacher? And even if he can say yes or no, it is of no value. You cannot ask. But people say so. I think those are well off, and those have the eternal life, and this is all what counts. I can't stop their mouth, but I can stop. I can't stop, I do not want to stop. Explain that they have the right to be there. It had been the people who were still having the genes, so to speak, in their heart to help others. But those never could understand me. I was trained not to say in the open that there had been some extraordinary things, and it hadn't been the internet, therefore I thought it never would. Now it is, and I feel that people know, even before I asked. I feel it, know something, I don't know what. Maybe only that there had been a scandal sometimes. The scandal had been with the daughter of a fellow student. And the daughter then went out of the ugly business of red light, money making. Yes, it had been that ugly that the own mother was not willing to help her own daughter in Hessen. And then I learned that the man who gave her work, he looked like a pastor. Yes, in the red light district, of course, he is no pastor. He said, I lost money. The next day he was at the doorstep. You know what? I have nothing to do with the so-called daughter of the so-called fellow student. But Mama, she was having a heart. She went there. And now I understand. It was even worse. The next day someone from the city came because I said, this is dangerous. He said it himself. If you do that more often, you will be in great danger. And I said, my mother wants to help. And I don't know how much money you lost. Maybe I can give you something from my pocket money, but he was not even laughing. I was at that, in that year, I think 1984, 1983 maybe, 15 years or 16 years old. I was a little bit protection, but it was ridiculous. Those is hardcore criminal in other countries. Criminal behavior. It is legal in this country to work with morally stinking things. And then came the rumor we would be a mission for the foreign girls, and this is ridiculous. I would never do it for the sake of my children. This had been my mother, I think, not even come to her ears. This is Mama. She felt responsible to help. It is only talk, to talk her out to continue. And then the other said he needs a little bit money. And he got the money. It was in the papers. And did we get trouble? Of course, no money. I have no stocks in this ugly, stinking shit. Nothing. We respect every human, and this is true. Every human being is respected. You can fall, and then people should help to come on your feet again. But if the own mother didn't do it, I now understand this then would have been the police looking into it. But I couldn't do anything. But it is rather very stinking to me that Papa did not even know. Mama went there, it was 1 hour drive, and I'm glad I saw it because I saw her without makeup. I saw her without makeup and thought this woman is sick. This woman is sick. And then in the movie, of course, there's filtering and so on, and it is selling good. But Mama helped. She was bold, but I'm not stupid. To help people would exclude no one. No one. The fallen I helped, like those who think those stand. But it is not my business. And this was very good. I learned about it. Since then, I did not trust the mayor anymore. Yes, from the city an official came and said, this is your business. If you go and meddle with them. And then someone said, if you meddle with the British. I never did meddle with them. It was an official contact. When the barracks were not used anymore, there was an invitation and I said, this is not right. I am here only because I was asked. I have no preparation and nothing of business has happened and will happen that way. And I stay at exactly this legal standpoint. It is not to have an excuse, it is to have clarification. That even the British could have been tricked. But it could have been that even the mayor was tricked. Who could be the third or the fourth one? I don't know. I don't know about the surrounding of the red light filming business and other things. I don't know. But everyone has a right to be accepted as human. This was the standpoint of my mother and Mama. And there had been the shock that police was not doing anything. And therefore I was glad to learn about it. I knew then there was a little bit support for nuns, for convent women, and then came a feedback, it is too dangerous. Too dangerous? There is no protection for everyone in this city, and there should be. And I always thought it was clarified, it was clear that this was an error of my mama. She went there and had a talk. We had no interest to rob some worker from somewhere, even if I don't regard it as work, but it's not for me to decide. I saw sick people working in other unhealthy, but this is no excuse. I learned to see it as good from the objective standpoint, that is even not to regard morals, but this is dangerous for church people. Because later came someone and said, if you do it, then you bring danger in the city. And I said, I didn't do it. I was only there as being asked, please drive with me to the other city. Otherwise, I'm traveling alone. It was no preparation. It was from 1 minute to the other. Have you an hour or two? And then it was 3 hours, and I was back home. And I thought, what was it? It was an ordinary apartment. It was the first floor, and the woman looked sick, and she was being accepting. She was wanting to accept my mama because her mother said she was a former friend, and then she complained, and then came someone from the city, and then I don't know, because I only learned that there was some money, like emergency help. But it was the same like emergency help for Eastern countries. It had been back then that there was help. There had been help for pastors who were crushing with the, or not a good relationship having with the Romanian government, some opposition. And it was not my judgment if it is good or not. It was the decision of others to help. And it was even, of course, that if, I don't know if it was done all the time, that the government heard about it. You don't do it secret. You can't go anywhere secret. If it had been done that way, I did not know. I can remember that mostly, I hope all the time, it was officially, except some filming stuff, and even that is to be documented. But at that age, I did not think about documentation. Today, this is as a documentation that I learned about a pattern that shows me parents helping those being stranded, wanting to help, and then a false light came on me. And maybe people now think I entangled in something. And this is not to be blown out of proportion. It is exactly to be done as I do it. That people help me privately, there is a link, PayPal me, BRESLAU-FRIENDS. And please consider the possibility that there are opponents, but I don't like the idea. Who is there officially in the duty? And this is officially, of course, official sworn in state people. I don't know from what state. It could be another. I trusted people being trusted or trustworthy. I learned in the 80s mostly that there had been weakness in the Federal Republic, and then the Allied helped. And in the eastern part, I don't know too much about it, but I had been there as well. It was always said we help without being cited. I won't do it again, because I now understand afterward there had been critique not to have helped enough with children's homes. And I said, I have no money. If you can afford to support that, better you do better, had been the accusation. I have no money. I was invited myself, and I was glad to have the possibility to show that I'm reliable. And that was the whole idea, to show that I'm trustworthy. Of course, you're a child and you show very much. Even now I do it. I myself am relying on trust and trustworthiness. People ridicule, I don't do it. I'm not blue-eyed. I'm relying on someone there who is really understanding this is artificial because others put art or artists' work in it. There had been the film people. Those talking, you did really not know if that is another movie or reality. Talking about other countries, seamen. And then me hearing what was explained about Russia. And even that I listened to. And I heard another thing, and then you learn as a detective to work on it, even if it is a little bit true. And this is true from the standpoint that there is false doctors. Maybe those will even put more falsehood in it. But this is not deliberately. It could well be that if there is an interest of specialists, this could look that evil, but this then would be from a novel, and I don't like the idea, and I don't go into it. This is your problem. I want to clarify it. It can't change the possibility that there could be someone, have been, earlier, who looked like me and then at school time played the trick. If I had found out, I was after it, but I couldn't find out, I would have, of course, reported to my parents, and those most likely to the police. I did not find out. And I even said it to the Netherlands, to a police station, and those said, you are not in our country. Otherwise we would look into it. But in this country it is not done. But I do not want to go to the Netherlands. It is not that bloody. It is ugly, but the doctors sell it as having been necessary, of course. What doctor would accuse himself? Otherwise he would lose the payment from the state insurance. But I reported it to the state insurance that this is false doctoring. There had been excuse after excuse. It is only the files that count. Oh yeah, that is a problem. And I don't go somewhere else. Therefore, please, I need your help. And this is first of all support. And the rest we will see. But no understanding, this had been high diplomacy, and then from the 80s it dimmered down. Maybe I do something else. I don't know. This is not your interest, otherwise you would help out of interest, and this should be morally not accepted. Thank you very much. This is Frederick, and we today have as a date the I showed it to you before, 25th, and looking for another 24th. This is yesterday. I don't know what this is all about. I'm not looking in the content, but it is important. that I'm suspicious. And people had to be corrected in the past. There had been playmates who were different, and I stopped being with them, and those had been with different environments, even other cultures, and this had been a thing others decided. That it had been good, those thought I would have had cultural experience, and I'm not blaming them. It had been done before. The Gypsies and the Portuguese and the Spanish and the Turkish and the every foreigner was having had some blame. Even me then being called blue-eyed, I don't know what, and yeah, it had been the time after the war. But I'm not accepting the excuse. Everyone is to be judged individually. And please go to it directly. And it is not that ugly, luckily not that bloody, that I could report a death. But as it is said in German, während den Anfängen. Be aware of the beginnings. To what could this lead? The whole doctoring system could be questioned, and this is good. This is good. A doctor being a judge looking at the doctor's file and not having the want to understand that it is a sectarian thing maybe. I'm not in a sect. I'm not a sectarian. Also in German nochmal ganz kurz, ein ganz wichtiger Punkt. Very important in German. Also ich bin natürlich kein Sektierer, aber das sieht danach aus, weil das Gerede ist. Das ist mal erstmal auch klarzustellen. Und es ist klarzustellen hier, wenn Mama der Tochter einer Kommilitonin geholfen hatte, die ja im Porno-Business war, dann habe ich das gemacht, um Mama zu schützen. Ich habe die kranke Frau gesehen und ich habe gedacht, wenn man anderen hilft, kann man ja auch helfen. Aber da war ein Rattenschwanz von Elend. Das ist in der Verantwortung von den anderen Leuten. Ich habe da kein Geld irgendwie investiert. Natürlich nicht. Papa auch nicht. Mama auch nicht. Und das könnte jetzt natürlich, denn die haben danach so komisch getan. Aber das machen auch Klosterfrauen, die helfen doch auch. Die haben nachher sich auch mal hier hingewandt, ja, so praktisch verständnisvoll, dass man das nicht machen soll. Da war auf der Reeperbahn dann auch so ein Posten. Und warum hat man mir das weiß ich nicht. Ja, meine Mutter hat gesagt, man kümmert sich um alle Menschen. Man kann die nicht abschreiben, ist ja auch so. Aber ich kann mir das schon längst nicht erlauben. Schon längst nicht. Denn ich habe den Ärger damals gesehen, das kann man nicht machen, wenn Kinder da sind. Ja, und die sind dann natürlich auch teilweise in Kirchen gegangen. Wie viel das waren, weiß ich nicht. Zum Glück sieht man das nicht. Aber ja, aber das ist für die nicht gut und für niemanden, weil das ist so, die ganzen Fräuleins auch nach dem Zweiten Weltkrieg. Da sagte mal jemand, also wir haben dann schon auch Kontakte gehabt über das Elend, wenn man da ehrlich sprechen würde. Also lieber nicht. Ja, das wird dann auch wieder extra noch ein Problem haben. Aber hier muss man es als Hintergrund wissen. Hier sind helfende Eltern gewesen. Papa auch. Und da habe ich gedacht, die vertrauen dem Staat so stark, dass die sich da wagen, da irgendwie, ja sicher, das sieht ja auch so aus. Du kannst ja da hingehen und sagen, Kind, komm wieder nach Hause. Deine Mutter sagt, du sollst wieder nach Hause kommen. Und teilweise ist das gemacht worden. Aber ich bin kein Privatdetektiv und ich bin nicht lebensmüde. Ich habe sowas nicht gemacht. Und da war wirklich ein Räuber, der hatte wohl den gleichen Versandhauskatalog und die gleichen Sonderangebote gekauft. Der war da an der Kölner Straße. Da sagte eine Kollegin, ich dachte, du bist verhaftet worden. Ich habe damals gedacht, das ist kurios. Wenn ich jetzt die 50 Jahre überblicke, frage ich mich, fällt einem kein auf? Wenn das stimmt mit der Familiengeschichte, vielleicht ist da extra jemand in der Nähe. Das gibt's doch gar nicht. Da kann doch nicht einer in der Nähe sein. Ja, der ist verhaftet worden. Das ist doch elendig, ist das. Der sah zufällig so aus wie ich. Na, die hätten mich ja nicht verhaftet, die können das unterscheiden, oder? Hoffentlich. Also ich habe das gemerkt, wenn ich so 10 Meter rankam. Der ist aus dem Haus geflüchtet. Der ist aus dem Haus, stimmt das überhaupt? Ich habe das nicht gesehen, das haben die erzählt. Aus dem Haus geflüchtet. Und den haben die da an der Wiese festgenommen. Warum nimmt man übrigens einen Bankräuber mit einer Hundertschaft fest? Warum das denn eigentlich? Also war das hier irgendwie ein Quatsch, den die erzählt haben? Deswegen sage ich mal nur, was die gesagt haben. It's a little correction. I'm now thinking about but it was in the papers that a bank robber had been busted. Do we need 100 policemen to bust one bank robber? No. One bank robber? I had been in America. There it is the sheriff and his deputy who is going there and saying, come out of the house. And if he's not coming out of the house, then maybe a helicopter. No. Therefore, it could be a joke of a co-worker who said, oh, you are still free? It was in the papers. No, the papers is not... you are as a detective in the party basement. Also anders kann man das nicht erklären. Das ist wie im Partykeller. Ich bin auch wirklich baff. Das kannst du im Internet finden. Das auch. Das ist eine von denen, die hatten mal erzählt, warum wahrscheinlich es Ärger gab wegen dem Grundgesetz. Also Grundgesetz ist etwas anderes jetzt hier am Ende. Grundgesetz. Da gab es eine lange Version mit Beschreibung oder Fußnoten. Und das hatten die eigentlich unterschrieben und die ist weg. Das ist die Original, das ist auch nicht die. Und da habe ich nur gedacht, was für ein Quatsch, warum regen die sich deswegen auf? Ja, warum regen die sich deswegen auf? Ja, weil die meinen, es geht alles in Richtung Gesetz. Und da habe ich gesagt, ja, dann ist das so. Dann geht das in Richtung Gesetz, wenn das so ist. Also bitte davon ausgehen, dass ich jetzt hier keine Lust habe. Aber ich bin hier wirklich blass. Das hier ist sogar noch geschönt. Das hier ist das Blasse. Ja. Und dann darf man aber nicht vergessen, dass es natürlich besser so aussieht. Und diese ganzen Kuriositäten, wie das Bankräuber verhaftet worden, es darf nicht sein. Aber es kann sein, dass ich störe, weil ich da bin. Denn wenn die Leute, die hingekommen sind und Nachfolger gesucht haben, wenn die das gemacht haben als Scherz, um mich zu verarschen, das kann auch sein, weil so gut habe ich die nicht gekannt. Na, nicht alle jetzt. Ja, na klar geht das. Ich bin da jetzt misstrauisch. Als Kind kenne ich die Leute nicht so gut. Das war eine, ja, wenn die dann gesucht haben, um dann praktisch zu sagen, wir haben gemerkt, er passt ja nicht. Dann haben die vielleicht Argumente gesucht, um zu sagen, ich könnte das nicht. Und das ist natürlich Quatsch. Weil ich habe mal mitbekommen, wie das gemacht wird. Das macht doch keiner alleine. Papa hätte da natürlich... Also wenn man natürlich alleine dann, würde ich auch nicht machen. Also man macht normal erstmal eine Aufnahme von dem, was man überhaupt vielleicht bereden will. Und dann wird auch der Stil und der Entscheidungsmodus verhandelt. Und also das sind richtige Verhandlungen. Und dann holt man sich noch Zeugen, die mit unterschreiben. Also einfach, um zu sagen, dass das also mit rechten Dingen abgelaufen ist. Also nicht unbedingt Notare. Deswegen immer ganz klar davon ausgehen, weil ich eben hier da schon ganze Zeit so, also praktisch als Vorbereitung gesehen habe, ist ja egal, ob einem das gehört oder nicht, wie ein Verwalter zu arbeiten. Das hat auch noch nicht mal was, also das verstehe ich aber jetzt. Ich dachte damals, ich kann ja eigentlich nichts. Also ob das Bank ist oder nicht Bank, also Administrator kann man, glaube ich, am ehesten sagen, als Administrator etwas zu unternehmen. Und wenn das nichts wird, habe ich mir gedacht, ich habe ja genug negative Dinge auch erlebt. Eigentlich profitiert davon die Gesellschaft, wenn das richtig läuft. Ja, sicher. Und was mich jetzt hier eigentlich schockt, dass es die Möglichkeit vielleicht gibt, dass ich da Hilfe bekomme offiziell. Weil das schon etwas mehr Leute betrifft. Aber wo gibt es die intelligenten Leute, die verstehen, dass sogar die Hilfe dann gefährlich sein kann? Ja, sicher. Ist das so, dass jemand mal gesagt hat, ich habe jetzt Hilfe und der Anwalt hat mich reingelegt? Mama hat das auch mal gesagt. Ein Anwalt hat einen englischen Vertrag gemacht. Ich habe gesagt, da steht doch drin Erbinnen. Also da dachten sie, dass das muss dann gewesen sein, als ich noch nicht da war. Das weiß ich nicht. Aber Mama kann auch für mich, also selbst wenn der Erbe gestanden, also Heiress oder Heir, das betrifft mich doch nicht. Es machen doch nicht die Eltern für mich Verträge. Wenn das im Ausland eventuell gilt, das ist wieder was anderes. Das ist dann wie eine Verfügung. Nur ich habe keine Lust, hier über ungelegte Eier zu reden. Ich mache das, weil ich praktisch trainiert bin, auch wenn das jetzt um andere geht, die moderne Art des Absicherns, nicht um die Leute reinzulegen, aber man muss es absichern. Und da ist dann das Erarbeitete, das Bahngeschäft, das Telegrafengeschäft, das Fahrzeuggeschäft und so weiter. Ich weiß doch überhaupt nicht, aber nicht, dass einer schon wieder, damals gab es das schon, dann Hilfe anbietet und ich schon mich amüsiere. Was will der denn jetzt auch noch davon? Also Profiteure gibt es jede Menge. Nur das Problem, es gibt kaum jemanden, der so kulturmissionarisch gedacht hat. Kaum jemanden. Und ich dränge mich nicht zwischen Eltern und ihren Erben. Heute gehe ich aber davon aus, vielleicht gehörte das den Eltern gar nicht. Also ich muss ja als Detektiv denken. Aber bitte nicht davon ausgehen, dass ich das wissen will. Das wollen andere wissen. Und dann gehe ich davon aus, wenn ich eine Gesellschaft sowieso von rechtschaffend, hundertprozentig guten Kontrolleuren jetzt profitiert. Also wenn es die alten deutschen Beamten nicht gibt, die können auch österreichische Beamte oder Schweizer Beamte oder italienische, französische. Ich meine nur die Qualität oder niederländische, dänische, die gibt es ja überall. Dann ist es schwierig. Und es ist immer schon hinterfragt worden, ob das richtig läuft, aber da muss ich sagen, das ist nichts Neues. Das Hinterfragen kann man machen. Aber ich muss richtige Dokumente sehen. Echte Dokumente, das ist nicht einfach ein Stück Papier, das sind Protokolle hinführend und dann weiß man ja auch, wer das vorher gehabt hat und die Umstände des Besitzerwandels. Also eigentlich Eigentum ist das, also wenn das ist wahrscheinlich überall so. Man kann auch neue Verträge machen, da bekommt man ein Lehen. Das ist dann also nur für, ja, das geht immer noch. Das heißt nur anders, das sind Verträge, nur ich will da gar nicht rein, bevor ich nicht was habe. Sie müssen aber wissen, dass ich die Weitsicht natürlich jetzt noch mehr habe als früher. Das ist kein Lob, das haben andere einfach mal gesagt. Mir ist eigentlich, einer sagte mal, wenn du das sagst, ja, man sagt doch nicht, was man kann. Aber hier ist das die Situation gewesen, ja, mache ich. Da ist eigentlich schon die Luft draußen. Das ist normales Qualitätsdenken. Das ist eher so, da ist ein ganzer Kreis gewesen und das ist abgesichert gewesen. Deswegen habe ich schon Respekt vor dem alten Dokumentenwesen. Und ich weiß nicht, warum das hier überhaupt Probleme gibt. Denn mindestens sollte doch das eine oder andere Unterstützerinteresse schon gewesen sein. Denn man lässt doch nicht Nachfolger einfach so im Regen stehen. Und da soll man sich doch nicht dahinter verstecken. Ja, sicher ist das ein Verstecken, dass man vielleicht einer Kirche etwas gespendet hat. Oder dem Bürgermeister. Es kann aber sein. It is possible, that there is a false narrowing in contract. Also es könnte ein falscher Einengungsvertrag gewesen sein, dass andere das nicht dürfen. Also das traue ich inzwischen einigen Politikern zu, dass sie einen Vertrag machen, dass niemand von außerhalb, das wäre natürlich eine Unverschämtheit. Also ich würde den einiges inzwischen zutrauen, weil die haben lange genug, haben die sich das überlegen können. Ja, es gibt immer noch Ideologen. Die gehören in die Kirche und das darf man auch haben. Ja. Aber das ist natürlich so eine Sache. Also man hat einiges gehört. Man will das ja gar nicht aussprechen. Denn den Menschen ist es bis jetzt nicht besser gegangen. Also bis jetzt haben sie es nicht geschafft. Sogar Hartz IV ist so eine komische Sache. Und da muss ich sagen, es kommt doch heraus, dass das Problem gar nicht mal so staatliche Hilfe ist, sondern also ich habe das zumindest so empfunden, die wachsende Unwilligkeit und vielleicht auch das Unvermögen, weil man einfach nicht mehr genug Geld hat, wenn man so viel Steuern zahlt, zu helfen. So, wir haben es hier 3 Stunden und ich muss das ein bisschen länger erzählen, aber damals haben wir ganze Nächte und dann auch echt geholfen. Also manche haben da wirklich auch, ich weiß nicht mehr, das interessiert mich dann auch nicht mehr. Ja, hier ist wirklich dann auch so beraten worden, wie man das gut gemacht hat in der Bundesrepublik. Das Grundgesetz ist schon angesehen, aber auch, wo man es lieber etwas anders hätte. Also Föderalismus so verschachtelt, das haben viele nicht gemocht. Und trotzdem, das Wirtschaften, das ist das A und O. Also die Energie, die muss aus der Leistungsfähigkeit kommen. Weil hier geht es darum, erstmal zu sehen, was eigentlich ist. Und die ganze Erwartung, ob ich die angenommen hätte, das ist noch die nächste Frage. Ja, man beschäftigt sich automatisch damit. You automatically look into books about inheritances. And the problems, if there is conditioning. Ja, das muss man wissen. Vielen Dank, das ist Friedrich. Und es geht darum, dass Sie es ernst nehmen. Deswegen muss ich mehr erzählen. Ja, das ist nichts anderes. Es ist kein Whistleblowing. Das heißt, this is about not whistleblowing to tell secrets, but about the old quality. Think about maybe 20 or 12 people thinking on the security about documentation business. This is underlying as well. Or this is important. But then there had been talks about the insecure home, therefore documents on several other places, but it is not true. My mother had been dreaming. And it could well be that there had been even double security. But who is not working out? What is not working out? Da muss man wirklich mal überlegen, was funktioniert denn nicht? Denn die sind doch klug gewesen. Ich gehe ja nicht davon aus, dass ich jetzt klüger bin als die Vorfahren. Die werden das schon abgesichert haben, oder? Da haben die doch bestimmt dann woanders das auch nochmal gehabt und dann noch einmal. Deswegen gehe ich jetzt davon aus, die schlimmste Möglichkeit, das könnte sein, dass man hier das Umfeld, das kann ich mir gar nicht vorstellen, das wäre das perfideste, was es gibt. Wenn ich zum Beispiel die Post nicht bekomme, das darf nicht sein. Oder wenn zum Beispiel Telefon nicht funktioniert, das darf nicht sein. Und wie lange kann das schon sein? Das darf einfach nicht sein, deswegen ist das auch nicht so, okay? Das ist nicht so. Aber die Möglichkeit, dass sogar Ärzte, das ist doch ein Zufall, oder? Dass da gerade irgendwelche Leute sind, die denken, irgendwas. Nein, deswegen muss man hier offen noch bleiben. Zufälle gibt es, okay? Aber gehen wir erstmal davon aus, dass sie helfen können. Das ist die Hauptsache. Denn es geht jetzt hier schon um eine Sache, wo ich mich wundere. Das muss man dann falsch erzählen. Denn hier ist früher sogar, wenn jemand sagte, du, da hat einer was vor, Da ist gesagt worden, wir können in 3 Jahre vielleicht, da müssen halt verschiedene Unternehmen, das wird hier noch nicht mal gemacht. Das heißt, das ist mir aufgefallen. Das ist auch ziemlich neu. Das ist mir aufgefallen, dass die Glaubwürdigkeit, die ich angeblich gehabt habe vorher, entweder nicht so weit hergeholt ist, also entweder gar nicht, oder nicht so weit her, oder verdreht wird. Also wenn das gekapert wird, das wäre eine Katastrophe. Also das sind Gerüchte, die habe ich für Bullshit gehalten. Da wirklich für Bullshit. Im Film macht man das. Ich kann dich auch spielen. Da habe ich nur gedacht, wieso? Ich war nur einmal auf die Probe nicht gekommen und da spielt mich jemand anders. Das hat mich schon geärgert. Und da war das auch nicht lange, ja. Aber als Hobby ist das da gewesen. Von daher, aber das wäre dermaßen. Eieieiei. Und dann gab es dann die Heimkinder. Da haben sich die Niederländer beklagt. Und da habe ich gesagt, ich weiß doch nicht, warum die in der DDR so erzogen wurden. Die halten zusammen. Und ich weiß nicht, warum die so clever sind. Das weiß ich nicht, weil man glaubt das ja nicht. Wenn man erwachsen ist, merkt man, manche Kinder kommen zu komischen Lösungen. Aber die sind doch jetzt schon auch längst über 50. Das machen die auch nicht mehr. Damals haben die da schon Dinge erzählt, dass ich nur gedacht hatte, sag mal, die sind doch nicht aus der DDR hier hingelaufen. Das sind doch Kinder um die Ecke, die irgendwie Blödsinn erzählen. Aber die Allgemeinheit hat geglaubt, die sind aus der DDR hier zu Fuß hingelaufen. Ja, und dann glaubt man das auch erstmal. Es ist ja auch egal. Man nimmt das erstmal so hin. Aber hier ist das ernst. Das hier ist kein Spiel. Das ist kein Spiel. Nehmt es bitte ernst. Und dann sind sie die Einzigen, die das auch ernst nehmen können, die mich von früher irgendwoher kennen. Und bitte nehmen sie auch ernst, dass ich erstmal für längere Zeit wahrscheinlich mein eigenes Ding machen will. Denn ich knüpfe doch jetzt nicht an die Sache, die sich damals zerschlagen hat. Ich muss ja erstmal wissen, warum. Warum hat sich das denn zerschlagen? Ja, weil ich als Knecht wollte ich nicht den die Koffer tragen. Ich hätte es vielleicht gemacht unter guten Umständen, aber die haben sich nicht ergeben. Das ist wirklich der Grund. Auch wenn ich noch nichts irgendwie über die Abstammung wusste, nur jetzt denke ich mir, ich kann das doch meinen Eltern nicht zumuten, dass ich so tue, als wäre das egal. Aber ich will das auch nicht aufblasen, denn die anderen, denke ich mal, wussten es auch nicht. Ich habe damals mit denen geredet, die so in anderen Ländern solche Rollen, Charakter ist auch egal, irgendwie bekommen haben. Ich dachte, das ist Theater, das ist Spiel oder was? Und ich hätte da eben als Missionar, so kam ich mir vor, die einfach machen lassen sollen. Halte ich da raus und so weiter. Das sind andere Gesetze in dem Land. Deswegen muss ich erstmal hier bleiben und erstmal verstehen, was ist hier denn eigentlich? Denn das ist hier nach dem Gesetz der Bundesrepublik Deutschland. Ja? Oder nehme ich das nicht mehr so ernst? Ich habe da langsam Zweifel. Bitte helfen Sie mir, das herauszufinden. Dankeschön.